The past year has been abysmal for Ubisoft. They have had multiple failures, they have been losing lots of money, and this most recent deal of theirs doesn't sound like it's going to be a smashing success given its Tencent. But now Ubisoft is moving to dismiss a big lawsuit against them and arguing that players can't complain that they were deceived. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, not even that long ago, the head of subscriptions at Ubisoft said that you basically needed to get used to not owning your games. And well, players aren't buying that BS. People want to own their games. We don't want to just license a title, but Ubisoft is saying that you just need to shut up and consume product and that you are not allowed to complain that you were deceived because Ubisoft's and the company's lawyers, Stephen A. Marenberg, have moved to dismiss a lawsuit regarding the crew that accuses Ubisoft of engaging in fraud and deception by tricking purchasers into believing that they would own the game rather than just purchasing a license. A class action lawsuit was filed against Ubisoft in the Eastern District of California by Matthew Cassell and Alan Liu, accuses Ubisoft of committing fraud and deception by deceiving consumers into believing that by buying the crew, they were obtaining all the traditional bundle of sticks of property rights over the game, when in fact they were only receiving a limited license by purchasing a physical copy of the game. A consumer would continue to have access to the game without being subjected to Ubisoft barring their access to play the game at any point, and by paying for the product, consumers were purchasing a video game, when in reality they were only receiving access to enter a video game Ubisoft controlled entirely. Now, this is a big problem with a lot of games now, especially going into the all-digital future. You don't actually own the product that you are purchasing. You're basically just licensing it, and they can rip it away from you whenever they want. It's like so many live service swap games where if they take the servers down and it doesn't have an offline component, you're screwed. You lose access to that. They don't have to refund you. Whether you bought the game or you bought microtransactions, any money you put into it, you do not receive back. And this is a major problem that companies are facing right now because there are a lot of people who are really upset with this, and rightfully so. When you are investing your time and your money into something, you should have something to show for it. This is why I personally buy physical whenever I can. Unfortunately, a lot of games do require internet connections, even just to download games at this point. But more and more companies are facing lawsuits over this. And what are the companies' responses? Just be quiet. When statements like this are made, companies need to realize that it's going to upset their potential customers, and they need to also recognize it's statements like this that make us not trust them. It makes us not have faith in them when they're just saying, oh, this is the state of the industry, this is the way that the market is moving, and it's not our fault you didn't read the fine print. That is not going to want to make an average customer swipe their credit card on one of their products. Sure, we know that this is the case with many companies at this point in time, that you're basically just purchasing access to something that you don't really own. It's just a license. But the way that they could word it is a much more customer friendly way, and they just don't give a fuck. So for context, Ubisoft announced in December 2023 it was shutting down The Crew. In a blog post, the company stated, today The Crew 1, including all its editions and virtual currency packs, will be delisted from online stores. The game will remain playable until March 31st, 2024 for all Crew 1 owners, and after this date, the servers will be shut down, meaning it is not accessible. And the company basically said that they understand it might be disappointing for players still enjoying the game, but it has become a necessity due to upcoming server infrastructure and licensing constraints. So they decommissioned the game. They said that you weren't going to receive any refunds, you weren't going to get any store credit, and then they ended up getting slapped with a lawsuit over it. And in response to this lawsuit, Ubisoft has filed a motion to dismiss with the company's lawyer Stephen A. Marenberg, arguing in part consumers received the benefit of their bargain and were explicitly notified at the time of purchase that they were purchasing a license, and plaintiffs received access to the crew entirely consistent with what was marketed to them. Now, as we're headed into an all-digital future, this is probably going to become the norm. There are going to be a lot of people who are going to try to fight back against situations like this where you're basically just licensing a product. I don't necessarily know if that is going to work, but when it comes to Ubisoft, they're moving to dismiss, basically saying that players can't complain that they were deceived. And this is only one of the many issues that Ubisoft is facing at this point in time. I mean, just a few days ago, we found out shareholders were launching a legal battle against the company and demanding renegotiation of the Tencent deal. It says Ubisoft shareholders, including AJ Investments and other minority shareholders, announced they have launched a legal battle against the company and are demanding a renegotiation of the recently announced deal with Tencent. Now, we don't even know what's going to happen with that, given the state of the kind of tariff war and what is going on with China, because Tencent is a CCP entity. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who have loved some Ubisoft characters and IPs and stories in the past, and you have nostalgia for them still, and you want them to get back to their glory days, but I just don't see that happening whether they go ahead with this deal with Tencent or not. I think that they are royally screwed basically no matter what happens to them at this point in time. At the end of March, Ubisoft announced it was creating a new subsidiary that would house its Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six brands, and along with these IPs in their back catalogs, the new subsidiary would also become the new home to Ubisoft's development teams based in multiple locations like Montreal and Quebec and Barcelona. But the creation of the subsidiary was announced after the company made a deal with the Chinese investor and developer Tencent, who would invest 1.16 billion euros into the subsidiary in exchange for 25% of it. So there were a lot of shareholders who were not very happy with this. AJ Investments announced that it and a coalition of shareholders are initiating legal proceedings in France, demanding that a French court compel Ubisoft to convene an extraordinary general meeting so that its shareholders can vote to have Ubisoft renegotiate the Tencent deal and distribute an extraordinary dividend. Now, will this come to fruition? We're not really sure. The economic state of the world right now is kind of in shambles. There's a lot of question marks, especially when it comes to the CCP. We're even hearing that apparently the CCP is going to be banning certain Western movies. So Disney is going to get absolutely screwed if by the end of the year that actually is happening because of things like Avatar. Though, then we also had seen the stocks collapse below 10 euros as shareholders revolt over the Tencent deal. So a lot is just not going very well for Ubisoft at this point in time. It's just not when they would probably want to have to deal with lawsuits, but they're facing multiple. And when they are moving to dismiss this Crew lawsuit, and with their argument, that is only going to stoke the fires of unhappiness with consumers more. Basically telling people that it's not our fault you feel you were deceived is an awful response. That is not what they should be saying, because that is not going to evoke trust with their customer base. So I'll be keeping my eye on this to see what actually happens, though there are a lot of accusations being levied towards them. They're facing lots of lawsuits, and Ubisoft is really struggling right now. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.